Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, and now it is time to put an end to this tireless debate of which roller coaster is better, whether it's going to be Iron Rattler or the new Texas Giant. So if you guys haven't yet, or if you're new here, if you want to help support the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, turn all the notification bells, and go ahead and smash that thumbs up button, as that greatly helps the channel grow a lot. So how we're going to do this is we're going to talk about both the rides individually and then come up with a score and base a score. Whoever has the highest score at the end of the video will pretty much be the winner. The things we're going to look at is duration, how long the ride lasts, elements as far as like air time and any lateral forces that are in play, speed, and the initial first drop. We're going to rate these all four categories on a scale of like from 1 to 10, and then we'll tally it up, and whoever has the highest score at the end of it pretty much is slated to be the winner. We're going to pull up the stats and show how everything plays out so you guys can see it as well. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and we're going to start off by looking at the new Texas Giant. New Texas Giant is stationed at Six Flags Over Texas in Arlington, Texas. Height restrictions 48 inches. Manufactured by Rocky Mountain Construction. It's a chain lift hill with a 147-foot drop. I do believe it goes up about 156 feet. Like I say, we're not going to get into the track. The angle of the drop is a 79-degree first drop, and the ride duration is 2 minutes. So let's start with the first thing. The ride duration here this is where Texas Giant really shines over Iron Rattler. Texas Giant's duration is about 1:45 to about 2 minutes, whereas Iron Rattler's is considerably less than that. I don't have a documented, time for Iron Rattler, but I'd say it's roughly about a minute, maybe a little bit over. But this is where Texas Giant really shines. So which ride is better in terms of duration? I'm going to have to say Texas Giant. It's considerably longer. When I rode the same weekend, we went to Fiesta, Texas one day, and then the next day we went to Over Texas, rode all three RMCs there, and Texas Giant was by far the longest of the three. Wonder Woman and Iron Rattler, they run a pretty tight race in facts of duration. So I might have to give this one to New Texas Giant. A 2-minute ride on a roller coaster is pretty considerate, and it's definitely it's a good ride. So we're gonna give New Texas Giant, we're gonna give it a 6 out of 10. All right, moving on to the Iron Rattler. Iron Rattler is stationed at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas, which is located in San Antonio, Texas. It's been in the park since May of 2013. Manufactured also by Rocky Mountain Construction. You can kind of see a trend here. Two of the best rides in Texas have the same manufacturer. It's a steel hybrid coaster, chain lift hill, a little bit taller than Texas Giant. It's got a drop of 171 feet, where Texas Giant has a drop of 147 feet. Top speed of 70 miles per hour. New Texas Giant's top speed is 65. The length of track is pretty similar. The angle of the drop is an 81-degree drop. So 81 degrees is significantly closer to 90, but it's definitely a steeper drop. So we talked about ride duration. So now let's talk about the first drop. The first drop on New Texas Giant it's not too bad. The 79-degree first drop on New Texas Giant, it's not bad at all. But an 81-degree drop on Iron Rattler is considerably better. Definitely a lot better, and definitely a lot noticeable. Riding the two, although New Texas Giant has a better ride duration, I feel that Iron Rattler's drop is definitely one of the best RMC drops, and definitely if in the state, if not considerably larger, because I mean the drop is just so great. It's a unique drop. New Texas Giants drop, as you go over the lift hill and you just pretty much go down your drop. New Iron Rattler, you go over the lift hill and you kind of make a kind of a little left turn as you're going down your drop. It's very unique, and when the ride first launched, it would kind of just meander there on the top of the lift hill, kind of like a dive tower, and then it would do the drop, which calls for a little bit of suspense before the drop. They don't do that now, but Iron Rattler's drop is just, it's one of a kind. Like, and I would be a fool saying that New Texas Giants drop is better than Iron Rattler, because it's just not. The drop is better, definitely way better. It's a taller drop. It's steeper. It's got that unique element to it. So Iron Rattler is going to take this one by far as which one has the better drop. Iron Rattler by far. As far as a score, I'm going to give Iron Rattler an 8 out of 10. And we're going to give New Texas Giant about a 7 out of 10. Alright, with that being said, let's take a look at our score so far. New Texas Giant is taking up the lead with 13 points, while Iron Rattler is it's fighting, man. It's holding on. It's at 12 points. Alright guys, let's move on to our next element, which is speed. Now, speed plays a really big part in roller coasters. The average speed for a roller coaster in the state of Texas is roughly around 60 to 70 miles per hour. Titan at Six Flags Over Texas says it goes about 81 miles per hour, but it never gets up that high. So New Texas Giant speed is approximately 65 miles per hour, while Iron Rattler's speed is approximately 70 miles per hour. Now, you would think that, okay, well, Iron Rattler's speed is faster. This one's an it's a closed book, but it's not actually that way, because there are a lot of different elements that come in place when you're talking about speed and roller coasters. One of the main things that comes in, you can say a roller coaster is 70 miles per hour, but if you run 2 people in the entire train, it's going to go considerably slower. Whereas if you run a full train, it's going to run considerably faster. More weight going down the first drop means more speed. Less weight going down the first drop means less speed. It's just gravity. But let's also talk about some of the other things. One of the famous things that I always say, anybody that always goes and ride with me, and I always talk about riding stuff at night, and track is made differently. So I've had the opportunity of riding both rides in the rain. I've had the exceptional opportunity of riding both in the rain at night with full trains. So I'm going to tell you right now, with a full train, when the track is wet, these things fucking haul, bro. I'm telling you, it's like the best ride I've ever had on both of these rides have been when the track has been wet, because it slaps when it's wet. Like, it's crazy, like super crazy when it's wet, and it's definitely considerably to notice it. The best ride I've ever had on New Texas Giant was during Holiday in the Park last year, when we had some winter weather, which in the winter weather in the South is like rain pretty much. So it was dark and it was raining. I went and rode New Texas Giant, and that was the best ride I'd ever had on that thing, because it was freaking, the airtime was more considerable. Everything about the ride was just better. And it's the same way with Iron Rattler. You know, at night when the track is wet, it's going. Like, it freaking hauls. So let's talk about the speed. Iron Rattler has more speed than Texas Giant, and it's considerably noticed that because Iron Rattler has a taller drop, it's going to gain more speed, and it's going to continue throughout the course, whereas New Texas Giant kind of not really as tall and not really as fast. So that's the reason why we're going to give Iron Rattler the win on this one. Definitely speed is definitely more noticeable on Iron Rattler, and definitely the drops, the two drops. There's the first drop, and then there's there's the drop off the quarry wall right before the end of the course. So those two things on top of the 70 miles per hour with a full train, we're going to give Iron Rattler the win here, and we're going to give it an 8 out of 10. And New Texas Giant isn't too far behind, so we're going to give it a 6 out of 10. All right, so let's take a look at our score. Because of the speed, Iron Rattler has jumped out in front with 20 points, while New Texas Giant is falling right in behind at 19 points. And we've got one more element to come down to, and it's make or break time, because the last thing we're going to talk about is airtime. Why is airtime so important when it comes to riding roller coasters? From the general public's concern, it's about a 50-50 win. Half of the people in the general public care about airtime, while the other half just like to enjoy the ride, and they don't really too much care for airtime. But from an enthusiast point of view, it's completely the opposite. About 90% of all enthusiasts, their biggest thing is like airtime. They always ask, it's with a new ride, does it have any airtime? Like, I remember the very first time I rode on Rattler, I was looking into it and I was like, does it have any airtime? Or, you know, when I'm looking into Busch Gardens, you know, I'm looking at some of the rides, I'm like, hey, do they have any airtime there? You know, because airtime is a really big thing for enthusiasts, because we're thrill seekers. We love that type of thing. When we can feel that zero gravity coming out of our seat, it's great. A lot of us love ejector airtime. So that's what we're pretty much going to talk about, because neither one of these rides has any floater airtime. So let's talk about airtime. Let's talk about Iron Rattler. Iron Rattler's first drop, as we covered earlier, is definitely better than New Texas Giant. But what also makes Iron Rattler's drop better is if you're sitting in the back car on Iron Rattler and you come over the top, you get to the top, you're legit at the top of the hill for less than half a second, because the weight of the train just pulls you over the hill so fast, and you get a huge jump of ejector airtime coming over that first drop. Sadly, there are two airtime hills in Iron Rattler. There's the first drop, and then there's one more bout of airtime when you're going over the quarry wall and you're sitting in the back. You come out of your seat, and it's like a considerable amount of time where you're out of your seat. If it makes you feel like, if you're like not comfortable with roller coasters, that you were legit gonna fall out of the seat. That's how noticeable it is. It's really, really strong. And it's two of the best points of the ride, is the first drop and the drop off the quarry wall. That's what makes Iron Rattler Iron Rattler. So there are those two bouts of airtime there on Iron Rattler. Let's get into New Texas Giant. New Texas Giant, sit in the back seat. First drop, same thing as Iron Rattler, sitting in the back seat. You come over the top of the hill. It doesn't pull you as significantly as Iron Rattler does, but it does pull you, and you do get some airtime off the first drop. When you run the course and you go to the mid-course break and you make that drop to the left turn, you get a airtime hill there. When you're coming off of the track heading towards the station, you get a bout of airtime there. There are two more airtime hills prior to getting into the tunnel, prior to the end of the course. New Texas Giant has a considerable amount of airtime compared to Iron Rattler. Iron Rattler has better airtime, but New Texas Giant has more airtime, if that makes sense at all. So with it being half and half, how would you really decide which airtime is better? Would it be Iron Rattler, or would it be New Texas Giant? When it comes to airtime, I used to always say the more airtime, the better you'll be. It's more fun. So every single person I've asked to, I was like, what do you guys think about, airtime? you know, with both rides. What do you think? And everybody always says the same thing. New Texas Giant has better airtime. And I have to agree with them. New Texas Giant has way better airtime than Iron Rattler. There's 2 spots of airtime on Iron Rattler compared to New Texas Giant when you've got at least 4 or 5 airtime hills. So let's get down to the nitty gritty. Which ride is better in reference to airtime? Is it the New Texas Giant or is it Iron Rattler? I hate to say it, but I'm going to have to give this one to New Texas Giant. The airtime is just, it's so much, there's just so much more. And the ride experience with the airtime makes the ride feel a lot of fun. And it's just the elements. New Texas Giants focuses mostly on bank turns and airtime hills. And the bank turns on Iron Rattler are pretty significant, but then overall, when you go on top of the quarry wall, you're kind of just meandering there. It's really cool coming off the quarry wall, but I think we count 3 elements in Iron Rattler. There's the first drop, there's the drop off the quarry wall, and then there's the barrel roll, the 0G roll that we count about halfway through. Those are the, you know, really main elements for Iron Rattler. Whereas New Texas Giant, it's just got a lot more going for it. It's got more airtime. It's got a significantly less better drop, but the ride duration and the amount of airtime throughout the ride is what really puts it over the top. So as far as airtime goes on New Texas Giant, I'm going to give it to this one. Alright, so I'm going to give New Texas Giant an 8 out of 10 on airtime, and I'm going to give the Iron Rattler a 5 out of 10. Alright, so let's take a look at our final scores here. What are they? For duration, New Texas Giant had the better first drop. Iron Rattler had the better first drop. For speed, Iron Rattler had the better score. And for airtime, New Texas Giant had the better score. This whole review has definitely been educational, and it's definitely been really hard, as I love both of these rides with all my heart. I love both of them. But the final score is New Texas Giant coming out on top with 26 and Iron Rattler 25. So even breaking these rides down, it's still too close to call. And I think they're both amazing, and they're both really great rides. Don't think that I'm knocking Iron Rattler, because anybody that knows me knows when I go to Fiesta, Texas, the first place I go is Iron Rattler. The very first ride of the day is either Iron Rattler or Wonder Woman. That's just how it is. So I'm not casting hate on any one of the rides altogether, as I love both of them. But New Texas Giant is just, overall, because of the ride duration, makes a big difference. And I think, me personally, the airtime also makes a lot of difference. Now, there are some diehard, like, Six Flags Fiesta Texas home park fans that'll be like, no, Iron Rattler's better. But man, this is just educational, and it's just my opinion. If you guys don't agree with my opinion, you're entitled to your own opinion. You can let me know in the comments what you guys think. If you guys think Iron Rattler better, why do you think it's better? If you agree that New Texas Giant is better, why do you think it's better? Let me know in the comments. I wouldn't mind having a discussion about this thing. If you guys like these kind of videos, let me know in the comments and name some roller coasters, and I'll do some more of these. It was just something that popped up. I thought it'd be good content, so I appreciate you guys watching, man. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like button. Help boost this video out a little bit. And we got our trip in 4 days, so we're excited about that. And we will see you guys in the next one. Like always, man, peace.